After 50 years of watching people, I've noticed that the moments which change us rarely announce themselves. No trumpets, no warnings, usually. It's something small, a sound, a shape in the distance, a choice made in a split second. I saw one of those moments in Kenya. I've never forgotten it. The flies hit him first. Thousands of them, rising from the savanna grass 300 meters ahead. David lowered his camera. Vultures circled against the morning sky. He turned back toward his vehicle, then stopped. Movement. Something gray, swaying in the golden light. He walked closer. The smell reached him iron and something wrong. A baby elephant. Ribs sharp against dusty skin. Legs trembling. Around her midsection, a black rubber tire, wedged so deep the flesh had swollen around it. The calf looked at him. Not afraid. Past fear. She took one step toward him. Her front legs buckled. She went down hard. Dust rising like a prayer no one had answered. We'd love to know where you're watching from today. If this story touches your heart, a subscription means more than you know. It helps us keep sharing moments like this. Thank you kindly for being here. 3 weeks earlier, David Mercer sat alone in the research camp mess hall, pushing cold rice around his plate. The other filmmakers had gone to bed hours ago. He stayed. Not because he was hungry, because his room had a phone on the nightstand, face down, screen cracked from when he'd thrown it against a wall 2 years ago. The phone still worked. That was the problem. He finished his water, walked back to his tent, lay on the cot with his boots still on. The phone sat where he'd left it. He picked it up, scrolled to voicemails, pressed play on the same message he'd listened to every night for 3 years. Jake's voice, flat, tired. "You said you'd come. You didn't. I don't know why I'm surprised." The message ended. David stared at the ceiling. Canvas, dust, the sound of insects outside. He never replied, never deleted it either. The next morning, his producer's email arrived, 3rd one this week. Beautiful footage. David, stunning visuals. But where's the heart? We need something that makes people feel. You're giving me nature documentary. I need story. I need connection. He closed his laptop. Connection. That was the word his ex-wife had used too. You film everything but feel nothing, David. You're always behind the lens, never in the room. She wasn't wrong. He'd spent 12 years documenting other people's courage because he didn't have any of his own. Filming rescues, filming reunions, filming moments that mattered to everyone except him. Safer that way, behind the camera. Nothing could touch him. Nothing could ask him to show up, to commit, to stay when the staying got hard. His brother Jake had needed him once, 3 years ago. A breakdown. A call at 2 a.m. "I need you to drive me somewhere. Please." David had a flight to Patagonia the next morning, a career opportunity. A story someone else would tell. He took the flight. Jake survived. Their relationship didn't. Now, kneeling in the red dirt of Amboseli, David watched the baby elephant struggle to breathe. His hand reached for his camera. Instinct. 12 years of muscle memory. He stopped. The calf's eyes were still on him, waiting. Behind her, at the tree line, 3 shapes emerged from the shadows. Low, hunched, moving in formation. Hyenas. David rose to his feet. Slow. No sudden movements. The hyenas stopped. 3 of them, the leader, scarred muzzle, one ear torn in half, watched him with yellow eyes that gave nothing away. 60 feet of open ground between them and the calf. David's heart hammered against his ribs. He had no weapon, no training, nothing but his body and the desperate hope that predators respected size. He spread his arms wide, made himself bigger. The scarred hyena took a step forward, testing. David shouted, His voice cracked. Too high, too thin. The sound scattered across the empty savanna and died. The hyenas paused, didn't retreat. He grabbed a rock from the ground, fist-sized, threw it hard. It missed the lead hyena by a foot, kicking up dust. The animal flinched, held its ground. David grabbed another rock, another. His arm burned with each throw. One stone caught the scarred hyena on the shoulder. It yelped, retreated 5 feet, then sat down, watching, waiting. They're not leaving. They're just waiting for me to get tired. He turned back to the calf. She lay where she'd fallen, sides heaving, eyes half closed, up close. The damage was worse than he'd thought. The tire-old truck rubber, cracked and sun-bleached, had wedged around her midsection like a belt cinched 3 sizes too tight. The edges had worn grooves into her skin, where rubber met flesh. The wound had festered, dried crust, yellow pus at the edges, flies clustering in the folds, laying eggs in tissue that was still alive. The smell hit him full force. Sweet rot, infection. Death waiting its turn. He noticed her legs caked in dried mud up to the knee. He looked around. 20 meters away. A shallow depression in the earth. A seasonal puddle, nearly dry now, rimmed with elephant tracks. She's been drinking mud water for weeks, alone. His throat tightened. He swallowed hard. How long had she wandered like this? How many days had she tried to keep up with her herd before they left her behind? How many nights had she stood in the darkness, listening for her mother's call, hearing only silence? He didn't know, couldn't know. All he knew was what lay before him, a baby elephant who should have died a week ago, but somehow hadn't. He reached for his camera. Muscle memory. 12 years of reflex. The viewfinder framed her perfectly. Golden light. Tragic subject. The kind of shot that won awards. His thumb hovered over the record button. The calf's eye opened, looked directly at him, not at the camera, at him. He lowered the camera, set it in the dirt, lens pointed at the sky. His radio crackled when he pulled it from his belt. He keyed in the research camp frequency. A burst of static, then a voice. Amboseli Base, go ahead. Yeah, I've got a calf here. Elephant, maybe 18 months. He paused, trying to find the right words. There's a tire stuck around her middle. She can't walk right. There's another pause. There's hyenas. Copy that. How long has the animal been in this condition? I don't know. Weeks. Maybe. The wounds are infected. She's in bad shape. Silence on the other end. Then, we're patching you through to Kenya Wildlife Service emergency line. Stand by. More static. A different voice female. Calm. Professional. This is KWS Dispatch. We understand you have a juvenile elephant in distress. Can you confirm your coordinates? He read them off his GPS, gave the details again, the tire, the wounds, the hyenas circling. Earliest we can dispatch a veterinary team is tomorrow morning, 8 hours from now. Can you stay with the animal until then? David looked at the calf, at the hyenas settling into the grass like they had all the time in the world, at the sun sliding toward the horizon, painting the savanna in shades of amber and blood. 17 hours, alone, no weapon, no expertise, no idea what he was doing. Yeah, he heard himself say. I'll stay. Copy that. Keep her calm if you can. Don't try to remove the tire yourself, you could cause internal bleeding. We'll be there at first light. The radio went silent. David clipped it back to his belt, stared at the calf. She stared back. Well, he said aloud, to her or to himself. He wasn't sure. Lord, what have I gotten myself into? The scarred hyena made a low sound, something between a laugh and a growl. Its companions answered. A conversation David couldn't understand but knew the meaning of anyway. Not yet, but soon. He gathered every rock within reach, piled them next to where the calf lay. Then he started looking for wood. The fire would need to last until morning. Behind him, the sun touched the horizon. The first shadows stretched across the savannah like fingers reaching for the calf. And somewhere in the distance, far enough to be another world, close enough to be a reminder, David heard the sound of elephants calling to each other. The calf's ears lifted. Her trunk twitched toward the sound. Then silence. Her family was out there, moving on without her. The fire took 3 attempts to start. David's hands shook as he struck the lighter. First spark caught nothing. Second spark died in the breeze. Third spark found the dried grass he'd gathered, and a thin flame crawled upward into the pile of dead wood. He fed it slowly. Twigs first, then thicker branches. The smoke rose white against the darkening sky. The calf lay 5 feet away, her breathing shallow and fast. Ribs rising, falling, rising, falling, a rhythm David found himself counting without meaning to. The hyenas had retreated to the tree line when the fire caught. He could see their eyes reflecting the flame's 6 points of yellow light, patient and unblinking. Night fell fast in Amboseli. One moment the sky was orange and purple, the next, black. Stars emerged more than David had ever seen. Even after 6 weeks in the bush, the Milky Way stretched overhead like a river of light. He didn't look at it. He watched the hyenas. And he talked. "I had a dog once," he said to the calf. His voice sounded strange and the silence too loud, too human. "Mutt named Pepper. Dumbest animal alive. Used to eat rocks. Actual rocks. Back when gas was 30 cents a gallon and you could still trust your neighbor. Vet said she'd die young." The calf's ear flicked. Maybe listening. Maybe just flies. "Lived to 14. Outlived the vet, actually." He fed another branch to the fire. Sparks rose and vanished. "My brother gave her to me. Jake. We were kids. He found her behind a grocery store, half-starved, covered in mud, carried her home in his jacket." The memory surfaced before he could stop it. Jake at 12, grinning, holding a trembling puppy against his chest. "She followed me. I couldn't just leave her." David's jaw tightened. He grabbed another branch. "Jake was always like that. Couldn't walk past anything that needed help. Stray dogs, broken birds, kids getting picked on at school." He paused. "People like me?" The fire crackled. Somewhere in the darkness, a hyena made a sound low. Testing. David picked up a rock. The attack came at 1 a.m. No warning. Just movement, a blur of spotted fur rushing from the shadows. David was on his feet before he knew he was moving. He grabbed a burning branch from the fire, swung it in a wide arc. Sparks sprayed into the darkness. The scarred hyena veered off. Close enough that David smelled it musk and carrion and something sour. He shouted, wordless, primal, swung the branch again. The hyena circled. Its companions emerged from the tree line, 2 more shapes, low and hunched, testing the perimeter. David's arm burned. His heart slammed against his chest. Sweat dripped into his eyes. He threw a rock, missed, threw another, caught one of the smaller hyenas on the flank. It yelped, retreated. The scarred leader held its ground, yellow eyes fixed on David, calculating. "Come on," David heard himself say. His voice was hoarse, cracked. "Come on, try it." The hyena didn't move. 10 seconds, 20. A standoff measured in heartbeats. Then, slowly, it turned, walked back to the shadows, sat down, waiting. David's legs gave out. He dropped to his knees beside the calf, the burning branch still clutched in his fist. His hands shook, his whole body shook. He stayed like that for a long time. Around 3 a.m. The fire burned low, orange coals pulsing in the darkness like a dying heartbeat. David's eyes stung from smoke and exhaustion. His back ached. His throwing arm had gone numb hours ago. The calf hadn't moved. Her breathing had steadied still fast, but no longer the desperate gasping from before. Progress. Maybe. He didn't know enough to be sure. He leaned against a rock, watching the darkness beyond the fire's reach. The hyenas were still out there. He could feel them. Then the calf made a sound. Not a trumpet, too weak for that. A low rumble. Almost subsonic. More vibration than noise. David felt it in his chest before he heard it with his ears. He turned to look at her. Her trunk moved. Slowly. Reaching toward him across the packed earth, it touched his knee. Light as breath. Held there for 3 seconds. Then pulled back. David didn't move. Didn't breathe. The fire crackled. A log shifted, sending up a shower of sparks. His throat closed. He swallowed once, twice. His eyes stung smoke. He told himself, "Just smoke. I'm here," he whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." The calf's eye reflected the dying fire. She didn't look away. Dawn came slowly. Gray light bleeding into black. The stars fading one by one. David heard the engine before he saw the vehicle. A low rumble, growing louder, accompanied by the crunch of tires on dry earth. He stood. His legs protested stiff, aching, half asleep. He shielded his eyes against the rising sun. A Land Rover emerged from the dust cloud. Olive green. Kenya Wildlife Service markings on the door. 3 people climbed out. The first was a tall woman in her 50s. Dark skin, graying hair pulled back tight, a face that looked like it had stopped expecting good news years ago. She assessed the scene before her boots touched the ground: the calf, the fire, the man standing over both. The second was younger, late 20s, lean build, already unloading equipment from the back of the vehicle. His eyes went to the calf first, and something flickered across his face. Compassion, maybe. Or recognition. The third hung back. Older, weathered, arms crossed. His expression said he'd seen this before and knew how it usually ended. The woman walked toward David. Her stride was measured, deliberate. She stopped 10 feet away. "You the filmmaker?" "Yeah." Her gaze swept over him, the dirt on his clothes, the burns on his hands from the fire, the empty look in his eyes. "Then stay out of the way," she said. "This isn't content." David's jaw tightened. He wanted to say something to defend himself, to explain what the last 17 hours had cost him. But she had already turned away. And when she knelt beside the calf, her hands gentle despite her voice, David saw her face change, just for a second, the mask slipping. Whatever she saw in those wounds, it wasn't good. The woman's name was Dr. Margaret Okonkwo. David learned this from the young ranger Samuel, who introduced himself while unloading medical supplies from the Land Rover. "She's the best we have," Samuel said, handing David a bottle of water. 20 years in the field. If anyone can save this one, it's her." David drank. The water was warm, metallic, the best thing he'd ever tasted. He watched Dr. Okonkwo work gloved hands moving over the calf's body, fingers probing the edges of the tire, her face betraying nothing. The older ranger Thomas stood apart, arms still crossed. He hadn't spoken yet. Hadn't needed to. He muttered something under his breath about construction crews leaving debris in the bush, or tourists. It happened more than people wanted to admit. Dr. Okonkwo straightened, pulled off her gloves. The snap of latex was loud in the morning quiet. "Severe dehydration," she said. Her voice was flat, clinical. "Infection spread. See the swelling here, here." She pointed to the edges of the tire where flesh bulged against rubber. The tires shifted her organs. Removing it could cause internal bleeding, and she's too weak for proper sedation." Samuel's face tightened. He looked at the calf, then away. Thomas spoke for the first time. His voice was deep, unhurried. "We've seen this before. You know how it ends." David stepped forward. The words left his mouth before he could stop them. "You're not going to try—" Dr. Okonkwo turned, slow, controlled. Her eyes were dark, unreadable. "Try what?" she said. "Surgery in a field with no blood supply. Sedate her and hope she wakes up. Watch her bleed out because we rushed it. So you're just going to— I'm going to make the call that keeps her from suffering longer than she has to." David's hands curled into fists at his sides. His nails bit into his palms. "That sounds like giving up to me." The words landed. Dr. Okonkwo's chin lifted. Her jaw tightened. "Listen." Her voice dropped, quiet and sharp. "You've been here one night. I've been here 20 years. I've held animals while they died because I couldn't save them. Don't talk to me about giving up." Silence. Samuel looked at the ground. Thomas exhaled through his nose a sound that might have been agreement. David opened his mouth, closed it. He had nothing. No argument, no expertise, no right to be standing here telling these people how to do their jobs. But the calf was still breathing, still alive, and he couldn't shake the feeling that walking away now would be the same as every other time he'd walked away. Dr. Okonkwo held his gaze for a long moment. Then she turned and walked toward the Land Rover. Pulling out her radio, Samuel approached him a few minutes later. David was sitting on a rock, watching the calf, trying not to think about what came next. "She lost 3 elephants last month," Samuel said quietly. He sat down beside David, leaving a foot of space between them. "Poachers. They came in the night. Killed the animals, took the tusks. By the time we found them—" He stopped, started again. "One of them was still alive. Barely. Dr. Okonkwo worked on her for 9 hours. Field surgery, blood transfusions, everything we had." He paused. "She died anyway, right in front of her." David said nothing. He watched Dr. Okonkwo pacing near the vehicle, radio pressed to her ear, speaking in rapid Swahili. "She's not cold," Samuel continued. "She's just— she can't let herself hope anymore. It hurts too much when it doesn't work." David understood that. Understood it better than he wanted to admit. "What about you?" he asked. "What do you think?" Samuel considered the question. Really considered it, turning it over in his mind like a stone. "I think this one's been fighting to stay alive for 2 weeks. Alone. That means something." He looked at the calf, her sides still rising and falling, her trunk twitching in her sleep. "Maybe it means she's not ready to stop." David stared at his hands. Dirt under his fingernails, blisters from the fire, burns he didn't remember getting. "What can I do?" he said. "I'm not a vet. I'm not a ranger. I don't know anything about this." Samuel looked at him. A small smile crossed his face, not happy. Exactly. Something closer to recognition. "You stayed," he said. "All night. With the hyenas out there. You stayed. That's already more than most." Dr. Okonkwo returned 10 minutes later. Her expression was unreadable, but her posture had changed. Shoulders slightly lower, jaw less tight. "Surgical units 4 hours out," she said. "They left Nairobi at Dawn Mobile Operating Theater. Better equipment, proper sedation. We'll stabilize her, hydrate her, try to keep her comfortable. When they get here, we attempt removal." Thomas raised an eyebrow. "You're sure?" "No." She looked at the calf. "But I'm not ready to quit on her yet." Samuel stood, started unpacking IV supplies without being asked. David cleared his throat. "What do you need from me?" Dr. Okonkwo studied him. Whatever she was looking for, sincerity, competence, something else, she either found it or decided to take the risk. "Stay close. Talk to her. Keep her calm." That's it? That's everything. The next 4 hours moved in fragments. Samuel found a vein on the third try. The calf's dehydration had collapsed most of her blood vessels, and each failed attempt made David wince. The needle finally caught, and clear fluid began dripping into her body. Dr. Okonkwo cleaned the wounds. She worked methodically, starting at the edges and moving inward, flushing out pus and debris with saline solution. The smell hit David like a wall rot and infection and something sour underneath. He breathed through his mouth and didn't look away. Thomas set up a shade structure canvas stretched between poles, blocking the worst of the sun. The temperature was climbing, 90 degrees, 95. The calf's breathing steadied slightly as she moved out of direct heat, and David talked. He didn't know what to say, so he said whatever came to mind. Stories from his childhood, descriptions of Montana winters, the plot of a movie he'd seen on a plane 6 months ago. Anything to fill the silence, to give the calf something to focus on besides the pain. She watched him, her dark eye tracking his movements, her ear flicking when his voice rose or fell. He didn't know if it helped. He kept talking anyway. The surgical unit arrived at noon, a modified truck with generators humming in the back, equipment gleaming through the open doors. A new face emerged. Dr. Peter Nkomo. Tall, thin, wire-rimmed glasses that seemed out of place in the bush. He examined the calf without speaking, his fingers tracing the edges of the tire, pressing gently against the swollen flesh beneath. When he straightened, his expression was neutral, professional. "The tires compressed her intestines," he said. "If we cut wrong, she bleeds internally. We'll have 3, maybe 4 minutes to stop it." Dr. Okonkwo crossed her arms. "Odds. 30%, maybe less." Silence. The generators hummed. Somewhere in the distance, a bird called. Thomas spoke. "We talked about this yesterday." "I know what we talked about." David found himself stepping forward. His voice came out steadier than he expected. "I'm not going to tell you what to do," he said. "But last night she reached out and touched me. Just..." Iad. Reached out. If she's still trying, maybe she deserves one more shot. Dr. Nkomo looked at him, then at the calf, then at Dr. Okonkwo. 30% isn't zero, he said finally. "Let's get started." They began with full sedation. Dr. Nkomo prepared the injection while Samuel monitored the calf's vital signs. David watched the needle slide into muscle, watched the calf's eyes grow heavy, watched her breathing slow until each rise and fall of her chest seemed to take forever. "She's under," Samuel said quietly. Dr. Nkomo nodded, picked up the cutting tool, a portable angle grinder, modified for field surgery. The blade whined to life. The first cut into the rubber filled the air with a smell David would never forget. Burnt tire and old blood and something chemical, sharp enough to make his eyes water. He blinked hard, kept his focus on the calf's face. Millimeter by millimeter. Dr. Nkomo worked. The blade moved slowly, carefully, separating rubber from flesh with surgical precision. Dr. Okonkwo stood beside him. Instruments ready. Thomas held clamps. Samuel called out vitals every 30 seconds. Heart rate stable, oxygen steady, temperature holding. David's job was simple. Hold the calf's head, keep her trunk clear of the work, talk to her even though she couldn't hear. "Easy," he murmured. "Easy now. Almost there." The smell grew worse as they cut deeper, layers of infection revealed, pockets of pus draining onto the ground. Dr. Okonkwo worked quickly, cleaning as Dr. Nkomo cut, trying to stay ahead of the contamination. 1 hour passed. The tire was a quarter free. 90 minutes, halfway, then blood, more than there should be, pooling in the wound faster than they could clear it. Dr. Nkomo's hands moved quickly. Clamp, suture, another clamp. I need suction. Now. Samuel handed him the equipment. A machine whined to life, drawing blood away from the surgical field. David's hands were shaking. He gripped the calf's head tighter, anchoring himself. Stay with us, he whispered. Come on, stay with us. 2 hours, 2 hours and 10 minutes. The tire split. The two halves fell away, hitting the ground with a dull thud. The wound beneath was raw, red, horrific, but clean. No active bleeding. Dr. Nkomo worked quickly, suturing damaged vessels, applying antibiotics, bandaging what could be bandaged. When he finally stepped back, his gloves were soaked red. Now we wait, he said. The sedation wore off slowly. David sat beside the calf as the sun moved across the sky. He watched her chest rise and fall, counted her breaths, lost count, started again. The team had set up a perimeter tents, supplies, a new fire pit for the night ahead. Dr. Nkomo had left with the surgical truck, promising to return in the morning. The others took shifts resting. David didn't rest. Dr. Okonkwo brought him water around sunset. She didn't speak at first, just sat down nearby, her own bottle in hand, and watched the darkness gather. You should sleep, she said finally. I will. When she wakes up, and if she doesn't. David looked at her. Her face was tired, lined, older than her years. Then I'll be here for that, too. She held his gaze, then nodded once. Night fell. The fire crackled. The hyenas had not returned. Perhaps the presence of more humans had discouraged them. Or perhaps they'd simply moved on to easier prey. Samuel sat with David around midnight. The young ranger's face was cast in orange light, shadows flickering across his features. When I was 8, Samuel said, there was an elephant that came to our village every morning, same time, to the river. We called her Nima. He picked at a thread on his sleeve. One morning, she didn't come. I went looking. Pause. I found what was left. David waited. The fire crackled. Poachers. They took the tusks. Left everything else. I'm sorry. Samuel shook his head, not dismissing the sympathy, acknowledging it, setting it aside. I became a ranger because of Nima, because of what I saw that day. David looked at the calf, still unconscious, still breathing. Why do you keep doing this? He asked. After that, after everything you've seen, how do you not just do? He gestured vaguely. Give up, walk away, stop caring. Samuel thought about it, really thought, his brow furrowing in the firelight. Because if I save one, he said slowly, then Nima's death isn't the end of the story. And he paused, frowning slightly, like he wasn't sure he'd said it right. The story keeps going. That's the point. David stared at the fire. The flames danced, consuming wood, turning matter to light and heat and ash. The story keeps going. He thought about Jake, about the voicemail he'd listened to every night for 3 years, about the words he'd never said, the calls he'd never made, the distance he'd let grow until it felt insurmountable. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe the story wasn't over yet. Dr. Okonkwo found him at 2 a.m. He was still sitting beside the calf, still watching her breathe. His eyes burned. His body ached, but he didn't move. My daughter's in Chicago, Dr. Okonkwo said. She didn't sit down, just stood beside him, arms crossed, staring at the darkness beyond the fire. Hasn't spoken to me in 3 years. David said nothing. She thinks I chose elephants over her. A pause. Maybe she's right. Animals are easier. They don't ask you to explain yourself. They don't keep score. David's throat tightened. He swallowed. I have a brother, he said. Same situation. Neither spoke for a long time. The fire crackled. An owl called somewhere in the darkness. She sent me a letter last month, Dr. Okonkwo said quietly. My daughter. First contact in 3 years. Just a few lines. Wanted to know if I was still alive. Did you write back? Not yet. She uncrossed her arms. Let them fall to her sides. I don't know what to say. I don't know if anything I say will matter. Maybe too much time has passed. David looked at the calf, at the bandages wrapped around her midsection, at the steady rise and fall of her chest. Maybe it hasn't, he said. Dr. Okonkwo looked at him. Her expression was unreadable in the firelight. Then she nodded, once, and walked back to her tent. Dawn came gray and cold. The calf's eyes were still closed, but her breathing had changed deeper, steadier, more like sleep than sedation. David leaned forward. Come on, he murmured. Wake up. Show them what you're made of. No response. He sat back, rubbed his eyes. The exhaustion was catching up with him now, a weight pressing down on his shoulders, his chest, his thoughts. Samuel appeared with coffee. Strong, bitter, exactly what David needed. He drank it in 3 gulps. Any change? Samuel asked. Not yet. They sat together in silence as the sun rose, red and gold light spilling across the savannah, painting the grass in fire. Dr. Okonkwo emerged from her tent, checked the calf's vitals. Her face gave nothing away. Heart rate's good, she said. Temperature normal. If she's going to wake up, it'll be soon. David nodded. His hands were trembling around the empty coffee cup. Then the calf moved. Just a twitch, her trunk lifting an inch off the ground, falling back. But it was movement, voluntary movement. Her eye opened, slowly, focused on nothing, then on David. He leaned closer. Hey, he whispered. There you are. The calf's trunk moved again, reached toward him, and then she tried to stand, front legs bracing, muscles straining, her whole body trembling with the effort. She pushed, rose halfway, her hind legs scrambled against the earth and buckled. She went down hard, tried again. Same result. Again. Same result. Dr. Okonkwo moved quickly, hands on the calf's hindquarters, pressing, testing. Her face changed. Just for a moment. Just enough. What? David demanded. What is it? Dr. Okonkwo looked up at him, and, for the first time since they'd met, he saw something other than control in her eyes. Her back legs, she said quietly. The nerve compression. It's partial, the signals are there, but weak. Worse than we hoped. David stared at the calf. At her legs, still scrambling, still trying. What does that mean? Dr. Okonkwo didn't answer. She didn't have to. The words hung in the morning air. Nerve compression. Partial. Worse than we hoped. David stared at the calf. She was still trying to stand, front legs bracing, pushing, her whole body trembling with effort. Her hind legs scraped against the earth, finding no purchase, offering no support. She went down again. Dust rose around her. She lay there, sides heaving, but her eyes were still open, still watching him. What does that mean? David heard himself ask again. What happens now? Dr. Okonkwo stood slowly, wiped her hands on her trousers. Her face had returned to neutral, the professional mask back in place. The tire compressed blood flow to her hind legs for too long. Weeks, probably. The nerves are damaged. Maybe permanently. Maybe. There's no way to know. Not here, not with what we have. Thomas spoke from behind them. His voice was flat, matter of fact. An elephant that can't walk, can't survive in the wild, can't follow a herd, can't reach water, can't outrun predators. David's chest tightened. So, what are you saying? No one answered. Samuel looked away. Dr. Okonkwo crossed her arms. Thomas met David's gaze and held it. "You know what I'm saying." The next hour was the longest of David's life. The calf kept trying. Every few minutes, she would brace her front legs and push, straining with everything she had. Each time, her hind legs would tremble, scramble, fail to hold. Each time she would go down, and each time, David felt something inside him crack a little more. Dr. Okonkwo examined the legs again, pressed along the spine, tested reflexes with careful, practiced movements. Her face gave nothing away, but her hands lingered checking and rechecking, as if hoping to find something she'd missed. "There's still some response," she said finally. "Weak, but present. The damage isn't total." "So she might recover?" David asked. "I don't know. Nerve regeneration is unpredictable. It could take weeks, months, or it might never happen at all. But there's a chance." Dr. Okonkwo looked at him. Her eyes were tired not just from the last few days, but from years of moments like this, years of hope meeting reality. "There's always a chance," she said. "The question is whether the chance is worth the suffering." Thomas stepped forward. "We should contact headquarters. Let them make the call." "The call is mine to make." "Maggie, I said the call is mine." Silence. The tension between them was old, David realized, built from dozens of disagreements just like this one. Thomas believed in pragmatism. Dr. Okonkwo believed in something else, something she'd been losing. Piece by piece, with every animal she couldn't save. Samuel cleared his throat. "What if we give her more time? A few more hours? See if there's any improvement?" Thomas shook his head. "And if there isn't, we're just prolonging the inevitable. Or we're giving her body time to heal. She's been through surgery. She's still recovering. She's been through 2 weeks of starvation and infection. Her body is shutting down. Her body held on for 2 weeks. Alone. That has to mean something." The argument hung between them, practical versus hopeful, experience versus faith. Dr. Okonkwo raised her hand. The others fell silent. "We wait," she said, "until noon. If there's no improvement by then, I'll contact headquarters and request authorization for euthanasia." David's stomach dropped. "That's only 3 hours. It's 3 more hours than she had yesterday." Dr. Okonkwo met his gaze. "Take what you can get." David sat beside the calf as the sun climbed higher. The savannah grew hot 90 degrees, then 95. The shade structure blocked the worst of it, but sweat still trickled down David's back, soaking his shirt. His throat was dry. His eyes burned. He didn't move. The calf had stopped trying to stand. Whether from exhaustion or defeat, David couldn't tell. She lay on her side, trunk curled against the earth, breathing slowly. He talked to her, the same way he had the night before. Stories, memories, anything to fill the silence. "My dad used to take me fishing when I was a kid," he said. His voice was hoarse, cracked from dehydration and lack of sleep. "Up in Montana, there was this lake, Mirror Lake, they called it, because on a calm day, you could see the mountains reflected in the water like a photograph." The calf's ear twitched. "I hated fishing at first. Too quiet, too slow. I wanted to be doing something, moving. But my dad, he was patient. He said fishing wasn't about catching fish, it was about learning to wait, learning to be still." He paused, swallowed. "I never really learned it, not the way he wanted me to. Always had somewhere else to be, something more important to do." The calf's eye opened. Dark, liquid, watching him. "I used to think being somewhere meant being present, being useful, but maybe that's not what it means at all. Maybe it just means staying. Even when it's hard, even when you don't know if it'll make any difference." He reached out. His fingers brushed the rough skin of her forehead. "I'm staying," he whispered. Whatever happens, I'm here. At 10 a.m., the calf tried again. David was mid-sentence when her front legs braced against the ground. He stopped talking. Watched. She pushed. Her muscles strained. Her whole body shook with effort. Her hind legs trembled, scraped against the earth. And then, just barely, just for a second, they held. She stood, swaying, unsteady, her back half threatening to collapse at any moment. But she was standing. David's breath caught in his throat. "Samuel!" he shouted. "Dr. Okonkwo! Get over here!" They came running. Thomas close behind. The calf stood for 3 seconds. 4, 5, her hind legs buckled. She went down, but she had stood. Dr. Okonkwo knelt beside her, hands moving quickly, checking the legs, pressing along the spine. Her face was tight with concentration. "There's more response than before," she said slowly. "Significantly more." Samuel let out a breath. "So, she's improving. Maybe. It could be temporary. The nerves waking up briefly before shutting down again. Or it could be the start of recovery. Or that." Thomas crossed his arms. "It's not enough. She still can't walk." "She stood," David said. "That's more than she could do an hour ago. For 5 seconds. 5 seconds is a start." Thomas turned to Dr. Okonkwo. "You know I'm right. Even if she can stand for a minute. 5 minutes, what then? She can't survive alone. Her herd is gone. She has no way to find them. We don't know that. We know exactly that. We've been doing this for 20 years. Maggie, we've seen this story before. We know how it ends." Dr. Okonkwo didn't respond. Her hands were still on the calf's hind legs, pressing gently, feeling for response. David watched her face, watched the war playing out behind her eyes. 3 hours, he said. "You said we had until noon." She looked at him. Let her have those 3 hours. Let her try. The calf tried again at 10:30. This time she stood for 8 seconds before collapsing. At 11, she managed 12 seconds. At 11:15, she fell after 7 seconds, a setback that made David's heart sink. But at 11:30, she stood for 15 seconds. And when she fell, she caught herself with her front legs instead of going down completely. Samuel tracked each attempt in a small notebook. Times, durations, observations. "The trend is upward," he said, showing David the numbers. "Not consistent, but upward." David nodded. He didn't trust himself to speak. Dr. Okonkwo stood apart, watching. Her arms were crossed, her expression unreadable. Thomas stood beside her, speaking in low tones that David couldn't hear. They were arguing. David could tell from their body language, Thomas gesturing sharply, Dr. Okonkwo shaking her head, a disagreement with stakes higher than any David had witnessed before. The calf tried again. This time, when she pushed herself up, something different happened. Her hind legs trembled, shook, threatened to buckle, but they held. She took a step. Just one, her front right leg moving forward, her weight shifting. Then she stopped, stood there, swaying, breathing hard. But she had taken a step. David felt his throat close. His eyes stung. Dr. Okonkwo walked over, stood beside him, watched the calf standing there, trembling, fighting. "Well," she said quietly, "I'll be darned." At noon, Dr. Okonkwo made the call. Not to request euthanasia, to request extended observation. More time, more resources. David listened from a distance as she spoke into the radio medical jargon. Progress reports, careful professional language that couldn't quite hide the hope underneath. When she finished, she walked back to where he sat. "We stay another night," she said. "If she keeps improving, we'll arrange transport to a rehabilitation facility. And if she doesn't," Dr. Okonkwo looked at the calf. The animal was resting now, exhausted from her efforts, but her eyes were open, alert. "One step at a time," she said. "That's all any of us can do." The afternoon passed slowly. The calf continued to try. Sometimes she succeeded, standing for 20, 30 seconds at a time. Sometimes she failed, her legs giving out without warning. But she kept trying. David watched each attempt, counted each second, felt each failure like a blow to his chest and each success like a breath of air. Samuel sat beside him for a while, then Thomas. Surprisingly, the older man saying nothing, just watching alongside him. Even Dr. Okonkwo spent more time near the calf than she had before. Her professional distance had started to crack. David saw her smile once, just once, when the calf managed to take 2 steps in a row before catching herself and looking away. They were all invested now, all hoping, and that, David realized, was the most dangerous thing of all. The sun began its descent toward the horizon. Orange light spilled across the savannah, painting everything in shades of fire and gold. And then, from somewhere in the distance, a sound, low, subsonic, more vibration than noise. The calf's ears rotated, her head lifted. The sound came again, closer now. David stood, shielded his eyes against the setting sun. On the horizon, gray shapes were emerging from the dust. Elephants, moving toward them. Samuel was on his feet beside him. "Is that?" Dr. Okonkwo grabbed her binoculars, pressed them to her eyes. When she lowered them, her face had changed. "That's a matriarch," she said quietly, "leading a herd of about 15. She paused. "And she's heading straight for us." The calf made a sound, a low rumble that David felt in his chest. An answer came from the approaching herd, the same sound, the same frequency, mother and daughter. They were talking to each other. The herd stopped 200 meters away. 15 elephants, gray shapes against the darkening sky. The matriarch stood at the front large, scarred across her face and shoulder, watching. The calf tried to stand. Her front legs braced. She pushed. Her whole body trembled with effort. Her hind legs scraped against the earth. Found no purchase. She went down. She tried again. Same result, again and again. David watched her struggle, watched her eyes fixed on the herd, watched her trunk reach toward them, making sounds, low rumbles, desperate calls. The matriarch answered, the same subsonic vibration. But she didn't move closer. She was waiting for her daughter to come to her. "She has to walk," Samuel said quietly. "The herd won't come into a human camp. The mother is calling her, but she has to make the journey herself. 200 meters. For a healthy elephant, nothing. For a calf with damaged legs, impossible." David stepped forward. "We have to help her." Dr. Okonkwo grabbed his arm. "Help her? How? Carry her? She weighs 300 pounds. We can support her, guide her, something. If we interfere, we could make it worse. The herd might see us as a threat and leave, or the calf could injure herself further trying to move faster than her body allows. So we just watch. We just stand here and do nothing. We wait. We give her the chance to do this herself." David pulled his arm free. His hands were shaking. His whole body was shaking. The calf tried again. This time, she managed to stand swaying, trembling, but upright. She took 1 step, 2. Her hind leg buckled. She went down hard, her shoulder hitting the packed earth with a sound that made David's stomach turn. She didn't get up. Her calls to her mother grew weaker. The matriarch answered, but still didn't move. David couldn't watch anymore. He walked toward the calf. Dr. Okonkwo called out behind him a warning, maybe, or an order to stop. He didn't hear the words, didn't care. He knelt beside the calf. Her eye found him, exhausted, afraid. "Come on," he said. His voice cracked. "Come on. You can do this. You've done harder things than this." He put his hands under her shoulder, pushed, tried to help her up. She thrashed. Her trunk swung wildly, catching him across the chest. The blow knocked him backward, sent him sprawling into the dust. He tried again, got his arms around her neck, pulled. She panicked, legs flailing, trunk whipping. A sound came from her, not a call. Something higher, sharper. Fear, pain. "Stop!" Dr. Okonkwo was there, pulling him back. "You're scaring her! Stop!" David stumbled away. His hands were trembling. His chest burned where she'd struck him. The calf lay still, breathing hard, eyes wide and white-rimmed. She didn't try to stand again. David walked away from the camp. He didn't know where he was going. Didn't care. His legs carried him into the darkness, away from the fire, away from the others, away from the calf who had looked at him with terror because he'd tried to help. He walked until he couldn't see the flames anymore, until the voices faded to nothing, until there was only darkness and the sound of his own ragged breathing. Then he stopped. His knees hit the dirt. He didn't remember deciding to fall. His palms pressed against the earth-red dust coating his skin, getting under his fingernails, filling the cracks in his hands. He couldn't breathe right. His throat was closing. His chest was too tight. 2 weeks. She fought for 2 weeks. And I made it worse. I scared her. I hurt her. His hands curled into fists. Dust and dirt ground against his skin. I came here to film a redemption story. That's all I wanted. Something to make me feel better about my own failures. Something to prove I wasn't the coward Jake knew I was. And now I can't even do that right. He thought about his camera, still lying in the dirt where he'd left it. All those hours of footage, all those beautiful shots of suffering he'd captured while doing nothing to stop it. You film everything but feel nothing. His ex-wife's words. His brother's accusation. The truth he'd been running from for 3 years. You're never there when it counts. He pressed his palms against his eyes until he saw stars. His breath came in short, sharp gasps. I stayed this time. I finally stayed, and I made everything worse. The shame burned through him, not sadness, not grief. Shame. The kind that hollowed you out and left nothing behind. He'd spent his whole life watching, documenting, keeping his distance, telling himself it was professional, telling himself it was necessary. But the truth was simpler. The truth was uglier. He was a coward. Always had been. And cowards don't get to be heroes just because they finally decide to show up. His hands fell to his sides. He sat there in the darkness, covered in dust. Empty. Footsteps behind him. Dr. Okonkwo sat down in the dirt, not close a few feet away, giving him space. Neither spoke for a long time. "First year here," she said finally. "I lost 19 elephants, counted every one. Still remember their faces." David didn't respond. "Told myself I'd quit, that I wasn't built for this, that caring was just a way to hurt more." Her voice was quiet, tired, not the sharp, professional tone from before. "Why didn't you?" She was quiet for a moment. "Because the 20th one lived, and then the 21st. A pause. "And I realized the pain wasn't the problem. The problem was thinking I could control it, thinking if I just worked hard enough, cared hard enough, I could stop bad things from happening." She picked up a handful of dirt, let it fall through her fingers. "You can't. None of us can. All we get to do is show up, again and again, even when we fail, even when we make it worse. That's the whole job." David stared at the darkness. His eyes burned. "I scared her," he said. His voice was hoarse, broken. "She looked at me like I was a predator, like I was going to hurt her. You tried to help. It didn't work. That happens. I should have known better. Maybe, but you'll know better next time. What if there isn't a next time? What if she doesn't get up again? What if the herd leaves and she dies alone because Then you'll carry that. The way I carry the 19. The way Samuel carries Nema. She looked at him. Her eyes reflected the distant firelight. The weight doesn't go away, but it doesn't have to crush you either. David's throat tightened. He swallowed hard. I don't know how to do this, he said. I don't know how to care about something and watch it suffer and not be able to fix it. Neither did I. When I started, she stood, brushed the dust from her trousers. You learn, or you don't, but either way, you're still here. That's not nothing. She put a hand on his shoulder, brief, light. Come back to the fire. The calf needs to hear your voice, even if she's scared of your hands. David looked up at her. His face was streaked with dust and something else, something he didn't want to name. And if the herd leaves, Dr. Okonkwo turned toward the distant gray shapes, still visible against the stars. They haven't left yet. David walked back to the fire. The calf lay where she'd fallen. Her breathing was steady, but her eyes were closed, exhausted, defeated. The herd was still there, gray shapes against the stars, 200 meters away. The matriarch hadn't moved, hadn't left, but she hadn't come closer either. Waiting, David sat down 10 feet from the calf, far enough that she wouldn't see him as a threat, close enough that she could hear his voice. He started talking, not to convince her of anything, not to make her feel better, just to fill the silence with something other than fear. When I was 22, he said, I got my first job as a cameraman, nature documentary, nothing big, just a local TV station in Montana. We were filming elk migration. The calf's ear twitched. She didn't open her eyes. I was terrible at it. Couldn't hold the camera steady. Couldn't frame a shot to save my life. My boss, this old guy named Walter, he wanted to fire me after the first week. David picked up a stick, drew patterns in the dust. But he didn't. He said I had something, couldn't explain what, just said I looked at animals differently than most people, like I was trying to understand them, not just capture them. He paused. The fire crackled. I don't know if that was true. Maybe he was just being kind. But I spent the next 12 years trying to live up to what he saw in me, trying to be the person he thought I was. The calf's trunk moved, curled against the earth. Somewhere along the way, I lost it. That thing he saw. I got so focused on the perfect shot, the perfect angle, the perfect story, I forgot why I started in the first place. His voice dropped lower, quieter. I forgot how to just be present with the animals, with the people in my life, with myself. He looked at the calf. Her eye had opened just a sliver. Watching him. I'm sorry I scared you, he said. I was trying to help, but I was doing it wrong. I was trying to make you do something instead of just being here while you figured it out yourself. The calf's ear rotated toward him, listening. I'm not going to touch you again. I'm just going to sit here and talk and wait. He leaned back, looked up at the stars. However long it takes. The hours passed. David talked until his voice went hoarse. Then he hummed old songs his mother used to sing, melodies he hadn't thought about in decades. When his throat gave out entirely, he just sat, breathing, present. The calf slept, woke, slept again, and the matriarch called from the darkness, low, subsonic rumbles that David felt more than heard. The calf answered weak at first, then stronger, a conversation he couldn't understand but could feel the weight of. I'm here. I'm coming. Wait for me. Around 4 a.m. Something changed. The calf's eyes opened. Not sleepy this time, alert, focused. She looked at David, then at the distant herd, then at her own legs, her front legs braced against the earth. David held his breath. She pushed, muscles straining, trembling, her hind legs scraped against the dirt, found purchase, held, she stood, swaying, shaking, but standing. David didn't move, didn't speak, didn't dare breathe. The calf took a step. Her hind leg buckled slightly, then caught. She took another step, another. She was walking. Slow, unsteady. Each step a battle against pain and weakness. Her legs were still damaged. Every movement cost her. But instinct was stronger than agony. The herd was calling, and she would not lie down. David felt his eyes burn. He blinked hard, kept watching. The calf stopped, turned her head, looked at him. For a long moment, they just watched each other, man and elephant, stranger and stranger. Then she turned back toward her family and kept walking. David stood slowly. His hand went to his camera still lying in the dirt where he'd left it 2 days ago. Muscle memory. 12 years of reflex. He stopped. The calf was 40 meters away now, still walking, still fighting. This was the shot. The perfect shot. Sunrise light catching her silhouette. The herd waiting in the distance. Triumph against all odds. His producer would weep. His fingers hovered over the camera strap. You film everything but feel nothing. He let his hand fall. The camera stayed in the dirt. Lens pointed at nothing. He watched the calf with his own eyes, not through a viewfinder, not framed for an audience, just watched. And for the first time in years, he didn't think about how the moment would look on screen. He just let himself be in it. The matriarch started moving. David saw it happen, the massive gray shape detaching from the herd, walking toward the calf with slow, deliberate steps. The calf kept coming. 60 meters now, her legs trembling with effort but not stopping. The matriarch met her halfway. They stood there, mother and daughter, trunks intertwining. The matriarch made a sound, low and rumbling. The calf answered. David watched them, his throat tight, his eyes stinging. The rest of the herd moved closer. 15 elephants, surrounding the calf, touching her with their trunks, making sounds he couldn't interpret but understood anyway. Welcome back. We waited. You made it? Then the matriarch turned. She looked at David. Across 100 meters of savannah. Their eyes met. She started walking toward him. Samuel appeared at David's side. Don't move, don't run, let her come to you. David couldn't have moved if he'd wanted to. His legs were frozen, his heart hammered against his ribs. The matriarch approached, slow, unhurried, her eyes never leaving his face. She stopped 5 feet away. Close enough that David could see the texture of her skin, the wrinkles, the scars, the gray hairs sprouting along her jaw, close enough that he could smell her dust and grass and something warm, alive. Her trunk rose. David stopped breathing. The trunk hovered near his face, then moved to his shoulder, touched him. A pressure, light but deliberate, 2 seconds, 3, then pulled back. The matriarch held his gaze for a moment longer, and her eyes were dark, unreadable but not hostile, not afraid. Then she turned, walked back to her daughter, nudged the calf gently with her trunk. The herd began to move. The calf walked with them, slow, unsteady. Her back legs still weak, but she walked into the center of her family, surrounded by bodies that would protect her, guide her, carry her if she fell. David watched until they disappeared into the dawn light, gray shapes fading into gray sky. Then he sat down in the dirt. His hands were shaking. His whole body was shaking. He didn't know what had just happened. Didn't know what the matriarch's touch had meant: acknowledgement, forgiveness, warning, something else entirely. But he knew one thing. She had seen him, seen what he'd done, seen what he'd chosen, and she had included him in something. Some moment, some understanding, that was enough. Dr. Okonkwo found him there 20 minutes later. She sat down beside him, didn't speak, just watched the horizon where the herd had vanished. "She touched you," she said finally. "Yeah." "That doesn't happen. Not with wild elephants. Not with matriarchs who've been around humans long enough to know better." David didn't respond. He was still looking at the empty savanna. What did it feel like? He thought about the question, the weight of the trunk on his shoulder, the pressure light, brief, deliberate. "Like being seen," he said. "Like someone finally seeing me." Dr. Okonkwo nodded slowly. She didn't ask what he meant. Maybe she already knew. The team packed up camp in silence, equipment loaded, fire extinguished, tire halves bagged for disposal evidence of human carelessness being returned to where it belonged. David helped where he could, carrying supplies, rolling up tarps, small tasks that required no expertise, just willingness. Thomas nodded at him once, not warmth, but acknowledgement. Respect. Maybe. Samuel shook his hand. "You should come back. When she's stronger. See how she's doing." "I'd like that." Dr. Okonkwo was last. She stood by the Land Rover, clipboard in hand, looking more like the professional he'd met 2 days ago than the woman who'd sat with him in the darkness. "What will you do with the footage?" she asked. "The parts you did film." David looked at his camera, still dusty, still lying where he'd left it. "I don't know. Maybe nothing." He picked it up, brushed the dirt from the lens. "Maybe this one isn't mine to tell." Dr. Okonkwo studied him. Whatever she was looking for, she found it. "Or maybe it is," she said. "Just not the way you planned." She climbed into the vehicle. Engine started, doors closed. David watched them drive away until the dust settled and the silence returned. He was alone, just him and the savanna and the weight of something he didn't have words for yet. He pulled out his phone, turned it face up. Jake's number was there, waiting. His thumb hovered over the call button. That night, David sat on the porch of his tent at the research camp. The African sky stretched above him, black velvet scattered with more stars than he'd ever seen in Montana. The air was cool now, carrying the smell of dry grass and wood smoke from the kitchen tent. His phone sat in his hands. The screen glowed against his palms. Jake's number. Right there. 3 years of silence. 3 years of guilt. 3 years of running. His thumb pressed the call button before he could talk himself out of it. Ring, ring. His heart hammered. His mouth went dry. Ring. "David," his brother's voice. Surprised, guarded, older than David remembered. "Yeah." His own voice came out rough. "It's me." Silence on the other end. David could hear Jake breathing. Could hear the distance between them, 8,000 miles of ocean and land and 3 years of words unsaid. "You okay?" David looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, a calf was walking with her herd, hurt, slow, but not alone. "No," he said, "but I want to be." More silence. He could picture Jake on the other end sitting in his apartment in Seattle, probably, wondering why now, why after all this time. "And I wanted to tell you," David stopped. Started again. "I should have been there. When you needed me. I wasn't." And I'm sorry." The words hung in the air. 3 years of weight behind them. Jake didn't respond right away. The silence stretched. David's hand tightened on the phone. Then Jake's voice. Quieter. "That's a start." Not forgiveness, not absolution, just acknowledgement. David exhaled. His shoulders dropped. Something loosened in his chest. Not resolution, not healing. Just the beginning of something. A door cracked open after years of being sealed shut. "I'm in Kenya," he said. "Filming a documentary." "Yeah? There was this elephant, a calf. She got stuck in a tire and—" He trailed off. "How do you explain 3 days that changed everything? It's a long story." "I've got time." 4 words. Simple. But they meant something. They meant Jake was willing to listen, willing to try. David leaned back against the tent pole. The stars wheeled slowly overhead. "Okay," he said. "It started with the flies. Thousands of them." He talked. Jake listened, sometimes asked questions, sometimes just breathed on the other end of the line. It wasn't a fix. 3 years of distance didn't disappear because of one phone call. The hurt was still there. The trust was still broken, but the story was still going. And maybe that was enough. Maybe showing up late, imperfect, scared was how every true story began. David talked until his voice gave out, until the stars started to fade, until the first gray light of dawn touched the horizon. Then he said goodbye, promised to call again, meant it this time. He set down the phone, looked east, toward the savannah where a calf was learning to walk again. A start, just a start. There is something quiet that stays with us after a story like this. Not a lesson, not a message, just a feeling familiar, tender. Perhaps a little heavy in the chest. Many of us have stood where David stood, not in Kenya, not beside an elephant, but in those moments when we had to decide whether to stay or walk away, when we carried guilt for choices we made years ago, when we wondered if it was too late to pick up the phone, to say the words we should have said long ago. Some of us are still carrying that weight. Some of us have set it down. Some of us are somewhere in between, and that is where most of us live, in the in-between places. It is all right if the story does not resolve everything for you. It is all right if something still aches. Not every wound closes completely. Not every call gets made. But the possibility remains quiet, patient, waiting. And perhaps that is enough for now. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying until the end.